Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Oi, Govinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. So, I look really blissful, don't I? Look like I'm in ecstasy, right? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Well, actually, I am really blissful because I'm free. I'm free. I've been cut free. I've been cut loose. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. I, me, the soul, am not under the control of anyone or anything in this world. I'm not this body. There's a famous saying, Socrates, because the government was at the time in, he was a Greek, right? Socrates, ancient Greek. He was a great philosopher, teacher, spiritual teacher. And his teaching was irritating the government because the young people were all coming to him and they were not interested in materialistic life anymore by hearing from him. And they weren't considering that they could be controlled by the government. And it was irritating the managers of society because his teachings were outside of the restraints of society. They were connecting to another level of realization beyond the finite limitations of the external world. So he was sentenced to death. I'd like to read that history of his life again. He was sentenced to death by drinking poison. He was made, it's kind of like the electric chair. You know, you have to sit in the electric chair and get electrocuted if you're a criminal. Well, enemies of the state, he was considered an enemy of the state with his subversive teachings. He was forced to be executed by drinking poison, forced to drink poison. So before he drank the poisonous substance, he spoke something to the effect that you really can't kill me, you'll have to catch me to kill me. So they were killing his body, his external temporary body, which was going to die anyway, eventually. But he, the soul, they couldn't catch. So this was his point. This was his last instruction, that if you want to kill me, you can kill my body, but if you want to kill me, you'll have to catch me. And then he drank the poison and he was gone. So they killed the body, but they couldn't catch him. He was realized like that. He had realized himself beyond the controls and restraints of the external world. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, and that's where the real ecstasies are. They're beyond the restraints of the material world. society, friendship, love, they're restraints. They control the living entities. Hare Krishna, Hare, based on the external body and the temporary situation. Hare Krishna. So all the teachings of the great masters and the liberated souls, they all aim in that direction of there's a difference between the temporary material world and the temporary material body and the eternal self. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare. This chanting puts us immediately in touch with the spiritual energy which is beyond this material world. And we become blissful as we are relieved of our attachments, temporary to the temporary situation. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So last night, there was a nice meeting, a little get together of the great saints and sages. So in the Hare Krishna movement, the first generation is now aging. They're in the late 60s, early 70s, and approaching the 80s in age. And they lived a life of practice, experienced many things. So when these seniors come together, it's really a powerful meeting because everyone's been on a journey. So there was one such meeting last night, and it was a lot of fun. It's like a transcendental old age home. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's really fun, actually. Everybody is becoming more and more relieved of their illusions about their relationship with the Supreme and what their goal and duty in life is. So many of us have seen the people that we know already leave, die. It's the body that dies, not the soul, but seeing this departing, this disappearance in our family members and in people that we know. And so many of us have had that youthful energy where we wanted to accomplish so many things and we strove to do that, and then it's like well, it's like castles in the sand, you know. It's like, I'm gonna build this, and it's like, and many of us, although we have accumulated some assets, now we're faced with what do we do with them? You know, how do we allocate them when we leave so that they're most helpful for others? It's going to be different when we're not managing the assets. Others will be managing them and using them. So we're faced with that also, the different inheritances of whatever it is we've accumulated. It's very interesting being on this end of life and preparing for disappearance. So yeah, Facebook isn't just for young people. It's the old people get to speak now too. And there's something of value there in connecting with the older generation. Hare Krishna. And then, you know, old people, their bodies start to not work properly as well as their minds. You know, you're going to see some, you know, people dealing with deafness and some people losing their teeth and eyesight going bad and can't get up off the floor easily because the knees don't work and different things like that. And then, you know, got to get to the bathroom right away, you know, stuff like that, as well as a kind of dementia also. We can't think very clearly. The body is a machine, and as it breaks down, this is a great blessing. This gradual relief from being under the illusion that I'm invincible and I can do anything. to have everything start to deteriorate while you're still in it, it's a great blessing. Because we can become freed from identifying with it. See, when everything's like, the flesh is firm and the hormones are running high and it can do anything, right? Then you want to identify with that because, wow, a lot of sense gratification. But as that deteriorates, you don't want to identify with that anymore because it's no fun. It's not fun. There's stiff neck, stiff back, the knees don't work. Who wants to identify? Skin is all flabby, can't eat this, can't eat that. Who wants to identify with it when it's in that condition? So they have to find something else to identify with to find happiness and pleasure. And so instead of being in the background, spiritual life and relationship with God from within the heart starts to take the foreground. Otherwise, it's going to be totally miserable. In youth, you're totally illusioned. And yeah, God is there, but, he's in the background somewhere. But as that material life becomes less and less exciting, then you have to find our excitement somewhere else. And so the Lord comes into the foreground. It's a really wonderful process, aging. It's just wonderful. And the real tragedy is when someone is cut short in life, not because they couldn't enjoy, but because they couldn't go through the process of being relieved from the illusion that enjoyment is connected to the material body on the material plane. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. It sounds funny to say, but it's true. It's a great blessing to go through old age. It's a great blessing. Hare Krishna. So I say, long life. Wish you a long life. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So we were reading from summary study of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's the 50th chapter in what's called the Krishna book, which is a summary study. It's actually a huge purport on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which was originally written by Srila Vyasadeva. In glorification of the Supreme Personality, Godhead, as instructed by his spiritual master, Sri Narada Muni, to end Srila Vyasadeva's lamentation and despondency. Vyasadeva had a great concern for elevating people in the human society, in the material world. And he had composed, under the direction of the Supreme Lord, he had composed the Vedas, which give guidelines for elevation, coming out of karmic reaction into the higher modes and becoming more peaceful in human society and edging toward being able to transcend the material world by coming out of the lower modes, which are very entangling and full of misery and suffering. But he wasn't satisfied, even after composing all these wonderful scriptures, the Vedas. He himself felt like something was missing. His spiritual master, Narada Muni, instructed him that what was missing was he hadn't actually directly glorified the Supreme Lord. He hadn't brought the Supreme Personality of Godhead into the foreground. All his Vedas were, the Lord was there, but he was in the background. So he says, it's time to bring the Lord into the foreground. And all that other stuff needs to go into the background. And so this was the Srimad Bhagavatam, where the Lord himself is brought into the foreground. directly glorified and described his pastimes, his activities, his incarnations, how he is controlling and maintaining everything, either directly or indirectly, what the creations are, both the spiritual and the material, what time is, who the living entities are, the different categories of living entities. Some are eternally liberated and others are conditioned, and how the conditioned ones can become liberated eternally. And so the Bhagavatam is a very direct scripture for bringing the Lord into the foreground, or in other words, being able to enter into the spirit of devotion, to be able to worship the Lord in the spirit of love of God. Jesus was teaching this also, with not so many details, but by his personal presence, he was giving access to worshiping in the spirit, bringing the Lord into the foreground. The Lord isn't like over there somewhere, he's right here. So this is also Srimad Bhagavatam. And so this is the summary study of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna book, by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who was traveling and preaching not a little less than 50 years ago on the planet, engaged in this transcendental, on this transcendental platform of preaching in the spirit of love of God. So this is, he was teaching preliminary practices to try to stabilize human society, which is what Srila Vyasadeva did. But then he was also directing toward the ultimate goal, which is the Lord is in the foreground. So he was doing both things, and both things can be found in his books, and both things are necessary. And that's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that the appearance of the most recent incarnation of the Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, had this twofold purpose: to stabilize human society and also to bring living entities to this platform of worshiping in the spirit of love and devotion in a very spontaneous way. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So this chapter 50, the Deliverance of Mucukunda, a little bit of history of it is, this is when Krishna was on the planet 5,000 years ago, and he was dealing with these demoniac leaderships that were around the planet, kind of like today, demoniac leaderships, irreligious personalities, really running amok. There was Kalyavana was an untouchable leader, full of all bad or undesirable practices. Kalyavana. He was outside Vedic practice, Vedic life. He had a large army and he was attacking Krishna. And then there was Mucukunda, who had been fighting on the side of the demigods against these demoniac forces and had been given the benediction that he could take rest because he'd been fighting for a very long time. All he could think about was just taking rest. He was exhausted. So he was given the benediction that he could take rest for as long as he wanted to. And if anyone disturbed him, when he woke, if he looked at them, he could burn them, incinerate them with his glance. So these are different mystic benedictions here. Hare Krishna. So Mucukunda was resting in the cave, and Kalyavana was attacking Krishna. Krishna didn't want to deal directly with this untouchable king. He just didn't want to, he was untouchable. Krishna didn't even want to touch him. So the plan was to lead him to this cave where Mucukunda was resting, and he'd had enough rest by now. It's time for him to wake up anyway. So Krishna led Kali. It looked like Krishna was running away, but he was running to this cave where Mucukunda was, and he went inside. So Kalyavana thought, oh, Krishna's afraid. And Kalyavana went in the cave, and he saw this body. It was dark in there. He saw a body in the cave, and he just assumed it was Krishna hiding, and he kicked the body. I think that's what he did. He kicked him. And when Mucukunda awoke, the first one he saw was Kalyavana, and he incinerated him. So Krishna took care of Kalyavana like that. And then Mucukunda was awake. He was looking around. He'd been asleep for a long time. And now he saw Krishna. And he wondered who this was. Krishna was very beautiful. He was extraordinarily beautiful. He wondered who he was. And Krishna explained to him that he was the personality of Godhead, come to deliver him. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Mucukunda understood that the reason he was able to have this darshan with the Supreme Lord was because he had taken shelter of a pure devotee of the Lord. Gargamuni, who was the priest of the Yadus, was actually a pure devotee of Krishna. Mucukunda had taken shelter of him. So that's the process. We come into contact with the pure devotee representatives of the Lord, and then we become eligible to have the darshan of the Lord by their mercy. So that's what happened to Mucukunda. Now Mucukunda is offering beautiful prayers. He's there in the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is now in the foreground, and he is worshiping in the spirit of love of God, and the Lord is right there. And the Lord can be a lot of different places at once. It's not like because the Lord was with Mucukunda, he wasn't with somebody else. The Lord is always accessible to his devotees. He's fully present unlimitedly in different situations. He can do that. It's not, if he's present with Mucukunda, it doesn't take away from him being present with the Queen in Dwarka or something. It doesn't work like that. He can be omnipresent. And as the devotee approaches the Lord responds to him. So Mucukunda is approaching the Lord in this loving mood, this respectful, loving mood of surrender. So these are some of his prayers. This is what we were reading last night, and it was very wonderful. So I wanted to read it again. So these are the prayers when Mucukunda starts to offer prayers. He says, Mucukunda immediately fell down at his lotus feet and began to pray as follows. So Mucukunda says, my dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, I can understand that all living entities on this planet are illusioned by your external energy and are enamored of the illusory satisfaction of sense gratification. Now he says all living entities. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. All living entities on this planet are illusioned by the external energy. Doesn't matter if it's a king or a pauper or a so-called religionist. To one degree or another, they're illusioned by the material energy, external energy. And enticed by thinking that they can find some sense satisfaction in the material energy. Very bewildering. Mucukunda continues, being fully engaged in illusory activities, they are reluctant to worship your lotus feet. And because they are unaware of the benefits of surrendering unto your lotus feet, they are subjected to various miserable conditions of material existence. They think they're happy. Actually, it's miserable. We're going to see how that is. They're foolishly attached to so-called society, friendship, and love, which simply produce different kinds of miserable conditions. It's very true. As a child, I wondered what was wrong with this family situation. My poor mother, she was always trying to get the family together, not just our little family. There was four, mother and father and myself and my brother. It was a small little family. But the aunts, the uncles, she always wanted like a big community of family, and it never worked. It didn't work. This one was mad at that one and wasn't talking to this one, and this one had just done something that made a mess out of somebody else's finances, and everyone was mad at everyone. And there was no real support amongst the family. Everyone was at odds with each other, pretty much. And she did find a couple relatives that she could relate to in a more open way, sympathetic way with each other. But a big family means more problems. We see that, especially if there are a lot of assets in the family. If the family has money, then there's a lot of sibling rivalry over who's going to get what. We see that. We see that. A lot of envy and rivalry amongst the family members. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So Mucukunda continues. Now he was a great king, so he was well aware of what goes on in family and extended family, because the king in ancient times was the father for everyone. He saw all the citizens, and not just people, but the living animals and everything in his kingdom as his dependents, or as his children in a sort of a way. And he was benevolent to everyone. That's the position of a righteous king. And Mucukunda was such a king. So Mucukunda continues. Everyone's attached to miserable conditions of material existence, and he says, they are foolishly attached to so-called society, friendship, and love, which simply produce different kinds of miserable conditions. Illusioned by your external energy, everyone, both man and woman, is attached to this material existence, and all are engaged in cheating one another in a great society of the cheaters and the cheated. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama. These foolish persons do not know how fortunate they are to have attained this human form of life, and they are reluctant to worship your lotus feet. By the influence of your external energy, they are simply attached to the glare of material activities. They're attached to so-called society, friendship, and love, like dumb animals that have fallen into a dark well. This is not necessarily that if one is in a family situation that they necessarily have to just dump everything and go off into who knows where. That's not necessarily what's being indicated here. But to perform one's duty detached. You do it as a matter of duty for the Lord, not expecting to that it's all about me and enjoying the situation. No, you do it as a service, nicely. Hare Krishna, Krishna, which is really what the Bhagavad Gita is about. When Arjuna was faced with that dilemma, that if I fight this war, which has arisen amongst our family members, then how will I enjoy at the end? Because I'm faced up against all my family members, all the people that I would want to be part of the kingdom. I'm having to kill them, and then who's going to be? And Krishna explained, well, this is your duty, and it's my will, because they are irreligious, and it has to be straightened out. So did it as a matter of duty. If the person finds himself in that situation. Of course, the best thing is to just keep it as a minimum. I mean, just minimize the involvement with the material situation. And I keep it to a minimum. But some people will find themselves with a lot of responsibility and to be done as a duty, a service to the Lord, without getting entangled. Like, we have a couple different histories of a couple different great saints in our line, in this line of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. We have Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was a big government man in Jagannath Puri in the 1800s. He was in charge of that huge city. He was the magistrate. And he had a huge family. I mean, he actually had 2 wives. He had, I believe, 13 children. That's a lot of just, it's very time consuming dealing with all of that. There's a lot of responsibility. 13 children, 2 wives. You're in charge, you're the magistrate of a gigantic city, and you're in charge of the temple there. It's one of the biggest temples in India, temple in Jagannath Puri, most significant temples in India. I mean, just how many, minutes are there in a day? And yet this great devotee managed everything. A few hours in the morning. When he returned home, he went into trance of meditation in Krishna. And his writings are beautiful. He wrote beautiful songs and prayers and a lot of very instructive scriptures. Krishna Samhita, Chaitanya Shikshamrita. He was a very prolific writer. So when did he find time to do all of that? He performed his duty in a detached way. Just amazing. And then another history, the exact opposite, and they were great devotee friends. They were very close devotee friends, is Gaur Kishore, who was totally renounced, had nothing to do with society or management or family or anything. Made it his goal of life to avoid everything and simply focus on Krishna. He lived totally renounced. Totally renounced. And the interesting part of it is Bhaktivinoda Thakur, one of his sons, I forget his family name, but we know him as Bhaktisiddhanta. His father, Bhaktivinoda, instructed him to take initiation from Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. And Bhaktisiddhanta was one of the greatest scholars of all time. He was a genius. But he also avoided family life and management responsibilities until he established an organized movement to try to, in a systematic way, present the teachings of the Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And he was somewhat successful with it, but not as successful as he wanted to be. He saw the shortcomings of trying to manage. He saw it was difficult. There were difficulties there when there were assets and there was rivalry. It's inevitable it comes up when there are assets. Hare Krishna. So what is the thread that holds them all together? Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta, and Gaur Kishore. What holds it all together? You're detached. One performs the duties with detachment, another manages to minimize their life in such a way that they don't even have to deal with it. Hare Krishna. Krishna is instructing through these different devotees. So we have to find what works for us. Each individual has to find what works for them. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Krishna will be satisfied. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Krishna is satisfied, then the devotee is satisfied. So back to Mucukunda's prayers, where he is saying they're simply attached to the glare of material activities. So if someone can't manage or maintain a material situation as a service to the Lord, by all means, they should be relieved from that. So Mucukunda continues, they are attached like dumb animals have fallen into a dark well. The example of a dark well is given because in the fields there are many wells, unused for years, and covered over by grass, and the poor animals, without knowing of them, fall into them, and unless they are rescued, they die. Unless they are rescued. It's not by our own endeavor that we can get out of this material entanglement. We have to be rescued. What's that old song from it? Rescue me. I gotta look that song up. That was a good song. Rescue me. I'll make a note of that. Rescue me. Rescue me. Rescue me. Rescue me. I like those old songs. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Being captivated by a few blades of grass, the animals fall into a dark well and meet death. So a few blades of grass, this enticement of material sense gratification, which could be a wonderful relationship with someone, and then it turns out to be not so wonderful. Then even if it is wonderful, it doesn't last. So it's not so wonderful. Or it's only temporarily wonderful. Hare Krishna. Similarly, foolish persons, without knowing the importance of human life, spoil it simply for sense gratification and die unnecessarily without any useful purpose. So that useful purpose doesn't mean like Vyasadeva thought the useful purpose of life was to elevate human society, make it peaceful. That's not quite it. I mean, it's part of it, but it's not the whole thing. The actual useful purpose is to come to that point of detachment from the material world and attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To be more attracted and to experience more pleasure being attached to loving service and glorification and remembrance and worshiping and praying and entering into the spirit, the love of Godhead, personality of Godhead, be more attached to that than the blades of grass in the material world or the dangling illusions, this person or that person, or some people have been married 4 and 5 times. Oh, they're going to get the right one this time. 5th marriage, right? Well, no. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare. Actually, when A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was traveling and preaching, one of the disciples, one of the students, approached him and said they were feeling so lonely. They were so distracted. They just couldn't continue without having a relationship, a physical relationship with another human being. They just couldn't live without that. intimate relationship. And Prabhupada said, that's all right. There's scope for that. And he was sitting next to the window. It was a busy street. The window looked out. He pulled the curtain back, and there was people walking. There were a lot of men, women. They were walking. And he said, if you want a wife, he pointed to the people. He says, pick one. Pick one. You have a wife, pick one. But love is for Krishna. So to keep it in perspective, love is for Krishna. Some people will do better without getting entangled in all of that, and other people will do better having that kind of thing to deal with. Everyone's different. Hare Krishna. But love is for Krishna. So Mucukunda continues. These are his realizations, and he's sharing these with the Lord, who's right there with him. And yet, in spite of our being so absorbed in material thought, inevitable time, which is only a form of yourself, is always careful about its duty. And as soon as the allotted time is over, your Lordship immediately ends all the activities of our material dreams. As the time factor, you end all our activities. As the hungry black snake swiftly swallows up a small rat without any leniency. Due to the action of cruel time, the royal body, which was always decorated with gold ornaments during life, and which moved on a chariot drawn by beautiful horses, or on the back of an elephant nicely decorated with golden ornaments. He's talking about himself now because he was a king. So the royal body decorated with golden ornaments, moving on a chariot drawn by horses, or on the back of an elephant decorated with golden ornaments, and which was advertised as the king of human society. Boy, that's like a real ego booster. Wow. I mean, it's so easy to misidentify with that, man. Shoo. Maybe some of these, since cinema and movies are very popular now, maybe these people that take to the acting profession, they kind of get a little intoxicated like that by their acting these different roles. And then they get their, what do they get? They get an Oscar for their acting or an Emmy or something. Who was the best? And I'm the king of the performance. And then in politics, you have these people now, they are achieve their political power by being voted in. So then, I won the election, I'm the king of, it's tricky stuff, you know. They think that's going to make them happy. Oh, Krishna. Oh, Krishna. Better get detached as soon as possible. Krishna. Okay, so this king was advertised as the king of human society, which continues. That same royal body decomposes under the influence of inevitable time and becomes fit for being eaten by worms and insects, or being turned into ashes or the stool of an animal. This beautiful body may be nice while in the living condition, but after death, even the body of a king is eaten by an animal and therefore turns into stool, or is cremated in the crematorium, turned into ashes, put into an earthly grave. Different kinds of worms and insects are produced out of it. So that's not something to become morose or depressed about. That's just something to understand with clear consciousness and to become detached from this material body. Because that's inevitable for everyone. Like, think about these Egyptian mummies that they dig up, right? So that mummy, all wrapped up in whatever it's wrapped up in, at one time was a very vibrant living entity, very important in that society. And now, what is it? It's a bunch of bones wrapped up in some kind of cloth or something. Hare Krishna, that living entity is no longer there. Hopefully, he's moved on. It depends on how attached they are. I mean, they can be hovering. Better to move on. Go to the next exciting situation. So Mucukunda continues, my dear Lord, not only do we become under the full control of this inevitable time after death, but also while living in a different way. Okay, so here comes a zinger. You ready for this? This is the king. He's looking back on his behavior before having this enlightened experience in real time with the transcendental Supreme Personality of God. He's looking back on his, it's like if you look through an old photo album, he's looking at those black and white photos of his behavior. And this is what he's seeing. He said, I may be a powerful king. So he went out, he conquered. He said, yet when I come home, after conquering over the world, I become subjected to many material conditions. It may be when I come back after being victorious, all subordinate kings come and offer their respects. But as soon as I enter the intersection of my palace, I myself become an instrument in the hands of the queens. And for sense gratification, I have to fall down at the feet of women. So he's conquered here by sex desire. He's conquered by his senses. If he wants to enjoy sex, he's going to have to surrender to these queens. He's going to have to beg them to please engage with him. The material way of life is so complicated that before taking the enjoyment of material life, one has to work so hard that there is scarcely an opportunity for enjoying. Yeah, material life means you have to work hard to accumulate the resources to enjoy material life. And to attain the youthful condition with all material facilities, one has to undergo severe austerities and penances, become elevated to the heavenly planets. So that's something else for those that practice religiosity. To attain youthful condition with all material facilities, you have to go to the heavenly planets. And in order to do that, you perform austerities and penances. That's one way to go to the heavenly planets, if that's what someone wants. If one gets the opportunity of taking birth in a very rich or royal family, even then, in that condition, he was always anxious to maintain the status quo and prepare for the next life by performing kinds of sacrifices and distributing charity. So even in the royal condition of life, one is not only full of anxieties because of political administration, but he is also in anxiety over being elevated to heavenly planets. Yeah, I may be the king now, but what's going to happen, right? I don't want to make any mistakes in my kingly duties because I might have to take birth as a worm next time if I misuse my power and my duties, my responsibilities. So in general, the tendency is for every conditioned soul, which we just learned is like all of us, until we're rescued, is to hanker and lament. Like in terms of sense gratification, I see things that I want, okay, and I hanker for them. Some kind of new this or new that, some new facility, a vacation somewhere, a new car, a new relationship, whatever it is, I hanker for it. I hanker for that. And then when I get it, I become fearful that I'll lose it. This relationship, oh, I lament, oh, I might lose it. Or the car, oh, I might not be able to make the payments and they'll repossess it. Or like that. So even when I get it, I'm afraid that I might lose it. So I'm always in anxiety. I want it, I want it, I want it, I want it. I'm in anxiety. And then I've got it. It's like, I might lose it, I might lose it, I might lose it. I'm in anxiety. Hare Krishna. So that is kind of what King Mucukunda is describing here, that he has this life of kingly power and all opulence, but he might lose it by not going to the heavenly planets. He might lose his this platform of great pleasure and opulence. So then he continues, it is therefore very difficult to get out of the material entanglement. But somehow or other, if one is favored by you, by your mercy only, he is given the opportunity to what? To associate with a pure devotee. That's how we get rescued. And that's what Jesus is saying, that I am the way, the truth, and the light, because he's the pure devotee. It's not by these austerities, it's not by charity. King Mucukunda is explaining that will get you, or get someone, to the higher planets. But even there, they're still mortal. You know, and they're going to glide down. If they're not careful, they will glide down again. So even though they have it, they can lose it. So until someone is actually rescued from the material situation, they're subject to this hankering, lamenting, and like that. And the way they're rescued is by the association of a pure devotee. That is the beginning point of liberation. And this, what we're hearing from here, is being written by a pure devotee. This summary study is being written by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is a pure devotee. So hearing from Srila Prabhupada like this, we get to associate with Prabhupada, at least in the book form. And if we're fortunate enough to have good association in the living body form, then how much more are we benefited? But at least we have the book form. Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada continues, the pure devotee continues. He's telling us what Mucukunda, who is also a pure devotee, is saying. So Mucukunda continues. Prabhupada is telling us what Mucukunda is saying. Actually, Prabhupada is telling us what Srila Vyasadeva says Mucukunda is saying. This is called disciplic succession. It's not changed. It's coming down exactly. So Prabhupada continues telling us what Srila Vyasadeva says that Mucukunda said to Krishna. So here it is. That is the beginning point of liberation, that association with the pure devotee. That is the beginning point of liberation from the entanglement of material conditional life. What was that? Association with the pure devotee. My dear Lord, only by the association of pure devotees is one entrapped by your lordship, captured. who is the controller of both the material and spiritual existences. You are the supreme goal of all pure devotees. By association with pure devotees, one can develop his dormant love for you. Therefore, development of Krishna consciousness in the association of pure devotees is the cause of liberation from this material entanglement. Okay, so Mucukunda continues. My dear Lord, you are so merciful that in spite of my being reluctant to associate with your great devotees, you have shown your extreme mercy upon me as a result of my slight contact with a pure devotee like Gargamuni. So this is, Mucukunda is realizing that because he had association with this devotee named Gargamuni, that he's now able to have these realizations and enter into the mood of devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in real time, eternal present time, or the Spirit of God. By your causeless mercy only have I lost all my material opulences, my kingdom, and my family. I do not think that I could have gotten rid of all these entanglements without your causeless mercy. Kings and emperors accept the life of austerity to forget the royal condition of life. But by your special causeless mercy, I have already been bereft of the royal condition. Other kings exert themselves to get out of the attachment of kingdom and family by acceptance of the hardships of renunciation. But by your mercy, I do not need to become a mendicant or to practice renunciation. Yeah, what happened here was, I mean, this is kind of standard for the royal order, is that as they age and they're no longer going to be managing their kingdoms, they will go and perform austerities and renunciation. They'll leave the family, they'll go to a holy place and become renounced. And it's very difficult. We have a history of Maharaj Bharata, who was the emperor of the whole planet. In the Vedas, this planet is called Bharatavarsa. It's the whole planet was named after him, Maharaj Bharata. He's a very great king, very great emperor. And he left the kingdom to his sons, and he went to the forest to perform these austerities, to become detached from the life of a king and to make that contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead apart from the material situation. But unfortunately, while he was in the forest, he became attached to a pet, a baby deer who was bereft of its mother during a storm and was left helpless, took shelter of Maharaj Bharat. He was feeding the deer, he was holding the deer, he became the deer's mother, father. He became attached to a deer. He'd given up his kingdom, but then he became attached to an animal who had taken shelter of him. So he was still doing the king thing, because king gives shelter to living entities. And unfortunately, when he left his body, he wasn't clear on complete detachment from the material situation. He had to come back another lifetime. And he came back as a deer. But this deer had full recognition of what had happened. It wasn't an ordinary deer. So he was just biding his time till he could get out of that deer's body and take up again the path of renunciation. And in his next life, he was a great renunciate, Maharaj Bharata. What was his name? Jud Bharat. And that was he was free after that. But he had to go through those lifetimes and learn those lessons of detachment. So it's very difficult, these kings and people that have so much responsibility and so many people depending on them, to just give it all up and walk off into the forest. Very difficult, very difficult. But that was the recommended procedure. But here, Mucukunda, he was relieved of having to do that because he had been fighting for so long on the side of the demigods and became so tired that he took such a long rest. It's kind of like a Rip Van Winkle thing. When he woke up, everything was gone. It was like thousands of years later. So where was the question of the king with the kingdom? Where was the question of family members? Even the planet looked different. The trees were different shapes and sizes. And it was like, what happened? Like Rip Van Winkle. So he's realizing here that that was the Lord's arrangement, that he didn't have to make that conscious effort to try to give everything up. He just went to sleep, and when he woke up, it was all gone. Nice, huh? Whew. So he's saying that was the Lord's mercy on him. And now he continues. This is his last little paragraph here, and we'll stop after we read this. Because then Krishna answers him, but maybe we'll read one little thing. Anyway, this is Mucukunda. Prabhupada continues telling us what Srila Vyasadeva said that Mucukunda said to Krishna. So, Mucukunda said, "My dear Lord, I therefore pray that I may simply be engaged in rendering transcendental loving service unto your lotus feet, which is the ambition of the pure devotees, who are freed from all kinds of contamination." You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you can offer me anything I want, including liberation. But who is such a fool that after pleasing you, he would ask from you something which might be the cause of entanglement in this material world? Yeah, who else said that? Dhruva Maharaj. There's another history. He, as a child, he was in the royal family, and his mother was one of the queens, but she wasn't a favorite queen. And when he tried to approach his father, the favorite queen, I think her name was Suruchi. Was her name Suruchi? Somebody. She wouldn't let Dhruva get on his father's lap because he was the son of the stepwife. She wanted her son to be on the king's, so she pushed Dhruva away and insulted him. And so he had that Kshatriya blood, the Kshatriya line, became very angry and went home, and his mother told him, well, I don't know how to mitigate your distress. I hear that great sages, they go to the forest and they get the Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna to help them, because I sure can't help you. So at 5 years old, that's what he did. He went into the forest, performed austerities, to the point where he was just taking a breath like every other month or something like that. It's huge, incredible. And the whole planet was becoming disturbed by the power of this austerities. And Lord Vishnu personally went to see what's going on here. What are you doing? What do you want? I'm here. I can satisfy whatever you want. So Dhruva, originally, his desire was to get a kingdom greater than his father's. He was so angry and outraged. But when he saw Vishnu, he realized what a foolish thing to ask for. If I did that, I would just become more entangled in material existence. Oh my Lord, I don't want anything. Just seeing you, I don't want anything. I came here, I thought I wanted a kingdom. But now that I see you, why would I want to get all entangled like that again? Why would I want that? It was such a foolish thing. I didn't want it. Well, Krishna, Lord Vishnu, he said, well, I'm going to give you a planet anyway. So this is the pole planet, the North Star. The whole universe revolves around this pole star, and that's the planet of Dhruva Loka. That's where Dhruva Maharaj is. But he doesn't forget Krishna. He's fully Krishna conscious there. But he also has a planet. So it can be like that too. You know, you can have these things and not forget Krishna. But those were his prayers at the time. So that's the same thing Mucukunda is expressing here. He says, now that he's seeing Krishna, I do not think, and Krishna has said, ask something from me. And Mucukunda is going, oh, I do not think any sane man would ask benediction from you. I surrender unto you because you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You're the Super Soul living in everyone's heart. And you are the impersonal Brahman effulgence also. Yeah. Some transcendentalists are not particularly attracted to the personality of Godhead, but they are attracted to his eternal nature. So they enter into eternity without any access to personality. And they think that that's just fine. But for a personalist, that's as good as suicide. So there are different types of transcendentalists. Mucukunda continues, moreover, you are also in this material world, because this material world is only the manifestation of your external energy. Yeah, everything's Krishna. The material energy is also Krishna's energy. So in that sense, it's actually spiritual energy, but it's temporary and it's illusory, so it's called material. Therefore, from any angle of vision, you are the supreme shelter for everyone. Yeah, the illusioned living entities, they get the shelter of the material energy for whatever that's worth. It's temporary. Everything's temporary. So there's really, you can hardly call it shelter, right? Just, they get the shelter of distress, lamentation, when they get that. And the spiritual energy, they get eternity, bliss, and knowledge, fearlessness, ecstatic loving exchange with the Lord, more and more realization, ever increasing awareness. Hard to even imagine such a condition in our present state, but it's described. Everyone, either in the material plane or in the spiritual plane, must take shelter under your lotus feet. I therefore submit unto you, my Lord. For many, many births, I have been suffering from the threefold miseries of this material existence, and I am now tired of it. Which is interesting because the reason he went into the cave was because he was tired. So now that tiredness is gone, but he realizes he has another tiredness, and that he's tired of this material activities. He's tired of this material plane. He's tired of these repeated births and deaths, trying to chase the pie in the sky. He's tired of it. He's tired. I don't want to do it anymore. And especially now that I have you. I feel your presence. I have simply been impelled by my senses, and it was never satisfied. Never satisfied. There's never enough. More. Never enough. Never enough sense gratification. More. Ah! Krishna, never satisfied. Not really. Maybe some temporary feeling of satisfaction, but then it starts in again. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire, to put it out. Kind of dies down for a few minutes, but then it flares up even more. Like gasoline on a fire. This pursuit of sense gratification. I therefore take shelter of your lotus feet, which are the source of all peaceful conditions of life, which can eradicate all kinds of lamentation caused by material contamination. Ah, Krishna. feet. Who would have thought that feet were so great, you know? Feet? Well, the lotus feet of the Lord are very fragrant. And when the Lord walks, it's like he walks on the material plane, but he's not in the material plane. Okay? So his feet touch the material plane, but they're not affected by it. So we want to hang on to those feet. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. We want to find those feet. Hare Krishna, Can you find those feet who are not affected by the material atmosphere? Then Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, take shelter there is what Mucukunda is saying. He's doing. But dear Lord, you are the super soul of everyone, and you can understand everything. Yeah, the super soul within the heart of everyone knows everyone's heart, right? Now I am free from all contamination of material desire. Mucukunda says, now I am free from all contamination of material desires. I do not wish to enjoy this material world, nor do I wish to take advantage of merging into your spiritual existence, nor do I wish to meditate upon your localized aspect of Paramatma, which is what the sages and yogis do. They'll sit in meditation, meditating on within the heart. Expansion of Krishna is expanded as Shirodakshai Vishnu or Paramatma within the heart of all living entities. He says he doesn't even want to do that. For I know that simply by taking shelter of you, I shall become completely peaceful and undisturbed. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And who is that you? That's the personality of Godhead standing directly there in front of the Lord, in front of Mucukunda, appearing as Lord Vishnu. So this is not within the heart. I mean, that's confined within the heart. Like Kamsa was very aggressive toward Krishna. He was not favorable toward Krishna. And his advisors were advising him not to worry about Krishna or Vishnu, because Lord Vishnu is within the heart of all living entities and cannot come out. He can't come out. He's locked inside the heart of everyone. So you don't have to worry about him. He's within the heart of everyone, but he can't come out. But that's not true. Here we see that the Lord is both within the heart of Mucukunda and also outside. And that happened with Narada Muni, and that we have histories of that recorded in the Bhagavatam. It happened with Dhruva Maharaj, and now it's happening here with Mucukunda. The Lord within the heart is manifest outside also. And that is the spiritual teacher, the bona fide spiritual master, is also Krishna manifest outside. So the bona fide spiritual master is a manifestation of Supersoul within the heart, Paramatma, outside. So Paramatma inside is Krishna himself, and Paramatma outside is the bona fide representative of Krishna, the bona fide spiritual master, the pure devotee. Can be taken as good as Krishna himself. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So just a little bit more here, because Krishna is speaking to Mucukunda. And Krishna says, Krishna speaking back to Mucukunda, he says, on hearing the statement of King Mucukunda, Lord Krishna replied, my dear king, I'm very much pleased with your statement. You have been the king of all the lands on this planet. But I am surprised to find that your mind is now freed from all material contamination. You are now fit to execute devotional service. I'm most pleased to see that although I offered you the opportunity of asking from me any kind of benediction, you did not take advantage of asking for material benefit. I can understand that your mind is now fixed in me, and it is not disturbed by any material fault. So I guess that's what we were reading last night in the association of some pretty far out devotees who are not particularly enamored by society, friendship, and love, and are attracted to and are not confused by thinking that rules and regulations are everything, society is everything, social status is everything, elevating society is everything, which was where Srila Vyasadeva was stuck. And as high as he could go with that was simply religiosity. He couldn't go any higher than religiosity with that desire and that goal until he was relieved by his spiritual master Narada Muni that go higher. Glorify directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, directly. And that will fulfill all your desires and become completely ecstatic and blissful. And that's what the Srimad Bhagavatam is, and that's what we were just reading, the summary study of Vyasadeva following that instruction to directly glorify Krishna. Hare Krishna. It's a lot of fun, actually. Hare Krishna.